Well, here we go. I want to tell you guys the story of Jaxson, Joyful Jaxson, my son. He's about to turn 7 in April. This is going to be raw, unfiltered, no cuts or edits or whatever. So I'm just going to try to wiggle my way through this story, but my hope is that someone is going to be encouraged. Someone is going to be given hope. Someone who didn't think that they could adventure again, enjoy life again, break out of grief, break out of hopelessness, is going to be encouraged and inspired. And particularly fathers. Fathers carry a heavy burden, a heavy load. And that's not to say moms don't, of course you do. But sometimes the load that fathers bear goes unseen too. And so I have a heart for that. So you'll notice my rig is in the background here, and you'll see why that is pretty soon. But my wife and I, we were so excited for Jaxson to be born. I remember taking walks and just talking about how excited we were. And I had just come through 4 or 5 major losses in my life at that time. Like most important things in the world to me were lost or broken or whatever. So I had already been coming through a pretty intense journey with grief. So we were so excited because Jaxson felt like this could be a new beginning, a new season for us. And anyway, I remember walking around behind our house. We lived on the Northern California coast at the time. And I could tell Jaxson had dropped in Becca's belly. So I knew it was going to be soon. And I think it was maybe that night. Becca wakes me up at like 1 a.m. or something like that. She had started contractions. But right away I knew something was off. She started having contractions every 30 to 60 seconds. And they were getting, pretty intense. And I knew this isn't okay. This is supposed to be you're supposed to start at 10 minutes apart or something. So she's like, should I take a shower? And I'm like, no, we've got to get to the hospital. This is a very small rural community way up in Northern California in the redwoods next to the ocean. So we're about, 20 minutes away from the hospital. And so we get our stuff together as soon as we can. We run in there and, they let the doctor know what's going on. But doctor didn't, so we got there, 2:30 in the morning. Same thing, just every 30, 60, maybe 90 seconds, contraction. Doctor gets there around 7:30 or something like that. And they finally get her dilated and all that. And we go into her, and she goes into active labor. And every time she pushes, and man, she is, if you know my wife, she's a champ. I mean, nothing's going to stop her with anything. She's incredible. But with every time she has a contraction and she pushes, count to 10, whatever it was, Jaxson's heart rate drops. And this continues for a few hours. And, of course, all the doctors and nurses are trying to play it cool, calm, whatever. But more and more nurses start coming into the room, just more people. And they're starting to, do you do this? You need to do that. So I'm cluing into this is pretty serious, or this is getting serious. And they're giving her, they're giving her some kind of medicine. This nurse is getting all these other things together, I'm preparing for the worst. And the doctor's trying everything, the vacuum and all this stuff. And she spiked a fever, 104 or something like that. And the pregnancy had been perfect. I mean, no complications, no infections, no complications, nothing. She did everything by the book, no coffee, no, whatever. She did everything by the book. And so we just expected a perfect delivery. But all of a sudden, one of the main nurses comes in and she goes, it's time, we gotta go. Her name's Lauren. We still keep in touch with her today, and we credit her with saving Jackson's life. So Becca had been bleeding profusely, and she's just white as a ghost. And I remember, like, they got her on the gurney and they're running her down the hall, and I'm running right behind them, and you're gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay, you're gonna make it. I love you. But she is white as a ghost, and there's blood on the floor. And I remember this big doctor came and took her into the surgery room, and as they were going through the doors, this big guy comes, you can't come in here. And it was so weird because, like, in this panic moment, I have this thought like, dude, you're a jerk. Just tell me. Like, but I had to wait and wait and wait. I mean, I don't remember how long, but they did a C-section, and Jaxson was born lifeless. And he coded for 15 minutes. They had to resuscitate him. And again, that nurse, Lauren, I get a smile on my face when I talk about Lauren, because again, we credit her with saving his life. We're still in touch with her. We saw her this past summer, and her and Jaxson connected. Like, it was like he knew she was the one who saved his life or something. It was crazy. What a connection. Just a God connection, you know. Anyway, I don't even know where I was. It's the thing about trauma. Even 7 years later, I can go straight back into it and forget what I was talking about. But waiting there for hours, I remember waiting in this rural hospital. I'm in this like 12 by 15 foot room or something, just waiting. I'm the only person there. And they come out and they say, she made it, but she's critical. And Jaxson is alive. He's gonna have to be life flighted down to San Francisco. And I remember walking in and seeing him, and just, there was blood all over, and he wasn't moving. Wasn't really making any noise. I remember they wheeled Becca in, even though she was critical. I found out later this was against the rules, but there was another nurse, a different one, that said, this mom needs to see her baby. And this baby needs to see her mom. And they wheeled her in, and oh man, she reached out and grabbed his hand. It was the first time he opened his eyes. He opened his eyes when mom grabbed his hand. Made a little noise. So they sent up the first air flight, and they forgot something. They had to send up another one. And they flew him off, and they took her back into the surgery room because she still was bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. And I had to go back to the waiting room, and then they had to do another surgery because she couldn't stop bleeding. And after that surgery, they said, we're gonna have to go back in and do another surgery because she still was bleeding. And this is now, I'm 2 days into this now. At the hospital, she's in, intensive care. They're just pumping her full of plasma and blood and water and saline. And she went in at like 138 or something before she gave birth, and she was 200 pounds because they were pumping so much fluid into her. And I remember being in that waiting room. Again, I'm the only one there. My head is just, the worst headache I've ever had in my life. You can't hardly eat, you can't sleep, you forget to drink water. I turned off the lights because my head was just killing me. I'm the only one in there, and I'm just crying out to God. Like, I had this realization, I could lose my wife and my newborn son in one false swoop. and crying out to Jesus and Jesus, please save him. Please save my wife, save my son. And I remember crying out to him and saying, I've been through so much. Like, I can't. I won't make it through this. And I remember him interrupting me. And he reminded me of that passage in Scripture where Jesus knew that Peter was going to betray him. And he said to Peter, the enemy has come to sift you as wheat. But when you have been restored, return and strengthen your brothers. And I knew then that there was more to this than just something happening in the physical realm or whatever, but something was happening. I don't mean to weird people out too much, but I really do believe something was happening. If you believe there's a spiritual world or whatever, and something was happening even more importantly in my heart, and was going to happen in my heart. But I knew, like, okay, that's what I have my battle orders, my marching orders. And I just was praying for them that they would live. I did have the realization at the same time that even if they didn't, it was going to be really, really, I don't know if I'd have made it. But they were going to experience heaven. They would never know another day of pain. And that gave me great comfort. So second surgery, even that didn't work. At this point, they have emptied out the blood banks where we are for her type blood. And they're calling in people. Come in, please come in and donate blood. She lost 6 liters of blood. That's more than she had going into the birth. So she's lost all of her blood and then some. And you should see, maybe I'll put a picture up on here of her arm, just black and blue from, they had to put a line in to keep giving her, like, just because all her veins were collapsing. She was third spacing. She was off the charts, DIC, which I still can't remember what those letters mean. But basically, nobody's supposed to recover from that, which I didn't know at the time, but I was told later. And I'm, at the same time, calling down to San Francisco constantly. Is he still alive? Is he still alive? Is my boy still alive? They had him on cooling therapy, which is supposed to slow down the heart rate so it causes less brain damage. He had a lack of oxygen in the womb is what happened. So again, I'm just fighting, praying for my wife and my son to live. So they have to go in a third time because Becca still can't stop bleeding. And without saying it, the doctor kind of let me know, like, this is it. If this doesn't work, we're going to lose her. Again, she didn't say that, but it was clear. I do counseling, coaching stuff for a living, so I read people fairly well. I've learned how to do that. And she told me later. Of course, they never tell you any of this in the moment. Right? So they do the third surgery. She makes it. She makes it out of the surgery. And we have to wait about 24 hours to know for sure whether or not the bleeding has stopped. And it did. It did stop. I think it was the next morning, the doctor called me into Becca's room. And she said, your wife is out of the woods. She can't go with you. We're 6 hours away by car for Jaxson, to get to Jaxson. But she can't go with you, but she's out of the woods. I remember asking Becca, are you okay? Are you okay if I go? If I go get our son? If I go get our son? If I go see our son? She said, yes, go. And I bolted out of there as fast as I possibly could. By God's grace, I didn't hurt anybody getting down there or get a ticket or, I was flying. Man, they were walking into his room and he's all hooked up, They got oxygen going and these IVs going and see my precious boy. Oh man. I was down there for a couple of days and then thank God for a couple friends brought Becca down and she saw our boy for the first time and oh my gosh, it was such a moment. But obviously they had some serious concerns about Jaxson, and so when he was healthy enough, they did an MRI on his brain. And we were elated because they came back and said there's no brain damage. It's a miracle. We thought it was a miracle. But several days went by and he could not get the suck, swallow, breathe pattern down. And they're like, we're gonna have to do another MRI. And they did, and they brought us back into a room with a lot of doctors and specialists, and he said, we're so sorry to tell you, but your son has severe brain damage. And obviously we were crushed. We had such high hopes. And I forgot to mention, evidently, again, we didn't find this out until later, but when they were resuscitating Jaxson, someone said to stop resuscitating him. That it wouldn't be worth it. That he would be too much of a burden on us. I would love for that person to see Jaxson right now. Because, man, this boy defeats all odds. But back to, he has severe brain damage and we're obviously devastated, and all the thoughts start going through your mind. Will my son ever walk? Will he ever talk? Will he ever find romantic love? Will he ever sing? Will he ever hear music? Will he ever see the beauty of this world? Will he ever know someone that loves him or know what love is? Will I spend the rest of my life, taking my son to medical appointments and therapy appointments and bathing him? And, they basically said, they didn't use this term, obviously, but the message was clear, like, he's going to be a vegetable. He won't be able to do anything. It's severe. The brain damage is severe. So you just feel like your life is over. Like whatever you thought your life was, every dream you had, you never dream, you never think about this possibly happening to you. And it's over. Everything's over. Your entire life will be this, caregiving. And don't get me wrong, because there's a beauty in that I've grown to see. But in the moment, you're pretty devastated. So we couldn't leave the NICU for 30 days. He had to eat enough on his own so that they could release him. And finally they released him and we go home, and now we're adjusting to life, life again, what we never thought was going to happen. We're like back in the real world. And I remember we were so traumatized. We stayed at my uncle has a house closer to the hospital. And so we would drive to his house every night as Jaxson slept. And one day it hit me that we had been going through a tunnel for like 3 weeks. And it just hit me one day, like, have we always been going through this tunnel? I mean, that's the trauma fog that you're dealing with. And I remember having that trauma fog even at home. And, Becca just, oh my gosh, she so rose to the occasion. Like, she took care of Jackson's, she was just all over it and has never stopped. We're 7 years into this and she has never stopped. She has been so all over it for Jaxson, everything he could possibly need, every appointment. Oh my gosh, she never quits. She never stops. She never gives up. She's like superwoman, super mom, but adjusting, and then you get all the medical bills, $86,000 for the life flight and $15,000 for the ambulance ride, which was 5 minutes to the hospital, to the airport from the hospital, and ridiculous. But now the grief starts. The grief season. And I went through a season of grief for about 5 years. There were times I couldn't get up off the floor. Again, because I was just coming off another 4 or 5 different losses, massive losses. So 5 years literally of grief, and at its worst, couldn't get up off the floor. I'm doing sessions on the phone. They didn't know it, but I'm laying on the floor because that's how much energy I had. Like, my grief was so intense. And Jaxson is like beating all the odds. So like he's rolling over early. He's sitting up early. It's like crazy. Now, it's not like something's wrong, but he's doing all this stuff he should not be doing. He's eating great. It was crazy. Yeah, and this doctor came up from San Francisco, the specialist for cerebral palsy came up, so eventually he was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, but as soon as she laid eyes on Jaxson, wow, this is not what I expected to see. When I read his reports, if you know APGAR score, he was a 1 on all the APGAR scores, and she was just like flabbergasted that he was doing so well. Like, kid, you're beating all the odds, you keep showing them. Man, he's a fighter. Dude, Jackson's such a fighter. He's been a fighter from the day he was born, man. He is such a fighter. And he fights with joy. And so he's just like joyful all the time. And he never complains about anything. He's just like so full of joy all the time. And so like 4 years into this grief, I'm really going to the heart of it. Like, I want to, my heart, like, I want to go to the very depths of it and work through it, walk through it. I don't want to stay there, but I don't want to leave anything behind, because I want God to be able to use whatever pain or loss or suffering I go through for his glory, but also to minister, to serve, to love on other people. And I wanted to meet him in the depths of that, and I did. But you know what brought me out of the grief? Jaxson. Because I had the thought, like the revelation hit me, like, if the kid that all this happened to, that is struggling to walk, struggling to talk, all this stuff, if he is full of joy, what am I doing? What am I doing staying here in grief? I've got to rise up. I got to champion my son. And that's what really broke it. That's like what broke the grief loose was Jaxson's joy. He's a bringer of joy and an ender of grief, a bringer of hope. And he's a rock crusher, a crusher of rocks and a conqueror of trails. And so that's what brought me out of the grief. And now to tie this in to the off-roading and this big thing behind me, one of the challenges I faced was, so I have 2 adult sons, and the way we connected the most was through nature, through adventure, hiking, going to the beaches, the redwoods, the mountains, ocean, everything. We went everywhere, camping, hiking, all that. And I was just like, how am I going to do this with Jaxson? How am I going to connect in nature with Jaxson? And about when he was 9 months old, I bought this. So I've had this about 6.5 years. Started taking it on trails and fell in love with off-roading. And I remember being at the top of Trail 4 at this off-road park where we lived in Northern California called Chappie Shasta. And it has this amazing overlook of Shasta Lake and Redding, and I mean, it's just gorgeous. And I'm all by myself up there. And the revelation hits me. This is how you adventure with Jaxson. This is how you adventure as a family. We're gonna build this thing so that it takes him everywhere that every person thought he would never be able to get to. And he's gonna see the wild places and the beautiful places and the epic places that we all take for granted. All of us that are normally abled, we all take for granted. This is gonna get us there. And that became the inspiration behind this build. And that's what I started doing. And I remember having a coaching session with a friend of mine, Tony, and he was like, how do you wanna go about doing this? And I'm still questioning, is this really from God or whatever? And I'm like, well, I can put this much money away from each session or every other week or whatever. I came up with all these rational plans, and he goes, what if God just wanted to do this for you? I just broke. It's like that God would be so good, and I knew that was right. And so some people have put in a ton of time on this without asking for anything in return. I'm not super mechanical, so I'm not mechanical at all, let's be honest. They've been a great help, and people have, donated things, and without even knowing our story. It wasn't like a thing out of pity or something like that. Giving us great deals on stuff, and somehow my Instagram just blew up. Like I wasn't even trying to. I was just like, wonder what it's. I'm just gonna post a picture of the LX, and like all these people liked it, and like, oh, this is fun. I like doing this. Like part of the, I'm gonna take pictures. And it kind of blew up. And so then people want to, they want you to run their product, so they'll give you a discount or something. But it's all been God. And we've gone to some just incredible places and met incredible people. But I want that to inspire and encourage you. No matter what situation you're in, there is a way, and God will make a way. And that's the story of this trek. And so we started doing trails together, and the more trails we did, the harder the trails we wanted to do. And so if you want to do harder trails, you have to build your vehicle accordingly. So skid plates, bumpers from descent was the first thing. Went up to 35-inch tires, and that was really helpful. We were doing, more intense trails, and then we wanted to get more places. There's just beautiful places, and the harder the trail, the fewer the people are going to be there. But one thing started happening is when we would hit rocks, which is normal, like that's why you have all the skid plates and rock sliders under the doors and steel bumpers, aluminum bumpers, whatever. It's normal, but Jaxson has a sensory deal, and he would freak out. And I was like, how can we do these trails and not hit so many rocks, and like have better traction so we're not squealing the tires even so much on the rocks, because that kind of can freak them out a little bit. And that's where the answer for portals came from. So if you don't know, portal axles, they lift, everything up. Not, so usually suspension lift, brings the vehicle up, but the differentials are still really low. Portal axles actually lift everything up, and they give you a gear reduction so you can run bigger tires. So we went up to 40-inch tires and portals, and now we're really looking forward to this off-roading season to see how all of this works. Because we should be able to do even harder trails and not have so much, hitting the rocks and stuff like that. But Jaxson loves it. He calls it bump bump. He loves going bump bump. He loves meeting the new people, and he just brings so much joy to everybody that comes with us. And he's joyful Jaxson, and he inspires everyone that's around him. Everything he does is a miracle. He's literally a walking miracle. They told us later he should have died, and your wife should have died too. Becca should have died. They are both walking miracles. Living, breathing miracles. Every time you look at them, it's a testimony of the miraculous. So he is so fun. He just has so much fun. He laughs and giggles, and he just loves it and inspires everyone. So I want to inspire you, encourage you, no matter where you are, what you're going through. There's a way. There's a way for you to still adventure. There's a way for you to still have hope, have joy. And I hope and pray that through this YouTube and through my Instagram and whatever other social media I do, I'm going to feature Jaxson, because he is so inspirational and so encouraging and so full of joy, and it's contagious. You cannot help but to be joyful in this dude's presence, man. I'm telling you, it broke me out of grief and gave me hope again. And he will do the same for you. So I want him to be able to do that through this social media and stuff. So connect on here, follow our story, connect on Instagram, XFACTR Adventures, YouTube, Instagram, Threads, because we want to share his story with you and inspire and encourage you. And he's doing so great, just so you all know. Like, he's walking, he runs a little bit now. They changed he's got these ankle foot orthotics that they put a hinge in, so now he can bend his foot, and he's just running, and he can climb stairs, climb a step ladder to pretend like he's changing the air or filling the air in the spare tire. And I mean, he rides around on his little go-kart and wiggle car and all this stuff, and he loves to go bump up. So, and he is the X Factor. We got some shirts and sweatshirts and hats made, and it's pretty cool. So, and let us know if you want one of those. It'd be cool to start, sharing that and sharing his story that way as well. We hope to find you out on a trail or somewhere else. If you see us, it's not too hard to spot us in this big thing. Wave, stop and say hi. Let us know if this is encouraging you, following our story, if you're getting hope or if you're getting joy or whatever. And we want to introduce you to Jaxson. We would love for you to meet him. So thanks for hanging in there with me. I know this is a long story, long video, but I really hope you follow along and join us for this adventure as we adventure together as a family. We want to inspire the world. So we love you, and blessings to you. Bye-bye.